Good morning and welcome to the Joy CEO podcast. I'm your host, Lori Pine, and I am so thrilled to have with me today my dear friend, the delightful Leanne Wynne-Davies. You are going to be in for such a treat today. Leanne has been in my private one-on-one coaching practice with me, and today you're going to hear a story that is tremendously special. It's very dear to my heart, and I think it's going to resonate with all of you who have ever questioned, why do I need somebody else to help me think differently? I can just keep going exactly as I am. So Leanne, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here with us.
Thanks, Laura. I am honored to be here with you. And I don't know if anyone can see me, but I am wearing my Boston jacket that I have had my eyes on for many, many years.
Yes. So a little backstory. Leanne is a runner. She has been a runner since she was a little girl. And she had a dream of running the Boston Marathon. And so when she says she has her Boston jacket on, it is bright blue and yellow, and it is emblematic of the Boston Marathon. And only the special qualifiers who actually run the Boston Marathon get one of these jackets. And today we're going to hear about the setback that happened. We're going to hear a little bit more about Leanne, who she is, and what happened. And I just love this story, and it was so special for me to get Leanne on the pod so that she could talk to you today and just share. So Leanne, let's hear a little bit about you and what happened.
Amazing. Thank you. So it has been quite a saga, I will say. I ran my first marathon in 2015, so over a decade ago. And at the time, it was the New York City Marathon. I was new to the city and quite frankly, just had it on my bucket list to run the biggest, baddest race in the world, which is at the time, New York is the biggest, right? It still is the largest official marathon. And I was so inspired by the energy of the city. I still believe to this day, it's humanity at its finest. And though I'd been a distance runner for a while, and I was a rower growing up as well, so I've always kind of had this distance athletics mentality and just kind of foundation in my life. I hadn't really locked in on what it would mean to qualify for the Boston Marathon until I went out in New York and almost qualified kind of by accident, and was like, wow, what if I go ahead and do this, right? It's Boston. And that was, like I said, 11 years ago. And I just finally completed my first Boston Marathon this season.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, unlike most of us highly ambitious women who are leading in corporate and want everything to be a straight linear line, this was not a straight line.
It absolutely wasn't. So outside of my running world, I manage sales teams at Google. And I bring that up because nothing in sales and in business is a straight line either. So the kind of journey from that first New York City Marathon in 2015 to Boston this year, I was totally comfortable with it not being linear and not being straightforward, because there's something in us on the sales front that likes the challenge, that likes to set high standards and hold a high bar, and that knows kind of what comes along with getting it done. So in that time, I've now run 11 marathons. I've completed all of the majors. I've run New York 6 times. And like I said, every major along the way.
7 majors.
Yes. Actually, no, sorry, 6. You're right. Sydney is now an official. So I've got my 6-star. Actually, I saved it to do it in Boston because I wanted that to be my grand slam. But yeah, 6 majors. Sydney does count now. You're right.
6 majors, but still huge. You've got the medal to prove it. 6.
Got the medal to prove it.
Clearly, I'm not a runner. So,
but yeah, just, I digress. Going back to the journey itself. Like I said, I almost qualified for Boston on accident in my first couple of New York City marathons. And then figured, hey, 3:35, it's 3 minutes of a difference. I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. Signed up for Chicago, went to race it, was in the best training shape of my life. At the time, I had just accepted a new role at Google and was just feeling like things were coming together. In the middle of that marathon, the most torrential thunderstorm came along just over the halfway mark, to the point that every runner had to nearly stop, was basically walking and holding on to each other for a couple of minutes. And, it's a couple of minutes in the grand scheme of 26.2 miles, but it was enough to, throw me totally off my game. It wasn't my day. And I thought that was going to be it. From there, I went on to try to knock out Boston in the London Marathon in 2020. We all know kind of how that went down, and was postponed. And then eventually I did come back and run the London Marathon and qualified. And Laura, I've got to tell you, I'll never forget the feeling of crossing the London Marathon finish line, knowing that I qualified for Boston. And I sat for a second and just cried. I was, but of pure joy, a feeling that to this day, I actually haven't had again, because it just felt like everything was coming together.
Oh, I love that. I feel like I'm there with you. Like I can feel that emotion, just so much poured into it. The training, the getting up early, the sacrifice, the squeezing it in between work, and just that moment of pure exhilaration.
Yep. And that's what it was. I couldn't believe it. It was done. That said, I knew for the last few miles of London, I had a plan. I wrote my own plan. I always had written my own training plans, and I hit it, and it was safe, and I got it done. Fast forward that fall, the Boston Marathon. So my qualifying time was accepted through BAA right away. And fast forward to the fall, the acceptance letters for actually running the following year's Boston Marathon for 2025 went out. And unfortunately, just having a qualifying time was no longer good enough. And you needed to be, I think it was at the time, like just over 4.5 minutes, or just around 4.5 minutes under qualifying to actually be accepted for the race. For context, for anyone who's not a runner, Boston has a pretty small heat compared to other majors. It accepts the fastest, period. So there's a qualifying cutoff. It's very strict. It's very competitive. And historically, qualifying was enough, but that has changed pretty significantly over the last few years.
Wow. Running is on the uptick. People are running more. People want to be a part of this movement. And Boston's had more applications than ever. And so people want to be a part of this.
Absolutely. I mean, Boston's had more applications than ever, but I think the stat is there's been a 50% boom, 50% growth in the global running population over that same time, over the last 10 years. Some of it is inspired by the pandemic, right? And people seeking time outside, reconnecting with their bodies in a different way. There's a ton of data to support that. But 10 years ago, the official qualifying time, it was actually 10 minutes slower than it is today. And that's just the qualifying time, not the acceptance time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just to put that into a little bit of perspective, what does 50% growth mean, right? At a global running population scale. If you want to picture what that looks like, it means there are roughly 200 million more people on the planet running today than when I first ran that New York City Marathon. 11 years ago. That's nearly the entire adult population of the United States suddenly putting on running shoes.
Wouldn't that be amazing? That is wild to think about it like that.
It is. It is.
Yes. So now there's all this competition, and there's fewer spots, so to speak, because of the competition. And so, all right, so it's fall of 2025, and what you thought was the qualifying time no longer actually gets you a race bib.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be under.
Yep. Sorry, I need to correct myself. Fall of 2024, I believe.
2020.
I think I'm off by a year. And the reason I know I'm off by a year is Well, because
We know.
yes, I'll get to that bit in just a second. But yeah, so I mean, I will never forget that email coming out. I was at the office. I actually had multiple people approach me who had seen news articles that were going crazy as soon right away. That so they kind of broke the news to me before I checked my own email, and I kind of didn't believe it. I didn't accept it for that afternoon. And then I remember coming home, still in absolute shock. This wasn't happening and feeling like I was just at a complete loss. And I know it's running, and maybe that sounds silly for some folks, but this was kind of my baby. It was my therapy. It was my 10-year project. It was something I designed all of my own running plans and got it done. And on top of that, I knew how hard it was to actually qualify and get to that speed and time that I was after for so many years. I also was really hoping to start a family. And everything going through my head was, well, okay, I guess that means I have to qualify again. But when the hell am I going to do that? Because I, I don't think I should postpone having a baby for this. That's kind of getting a little crazy.
A baby or a marathon?
But I'd be lying if I didn't say that was a real thought. Well, I guess we'll just wait another year for a kid. No, that's crazy. But then at the same time, when am I going to train if I have a baby? So I, as you know, was, I would say, spiraling. And we had an amazing coaching session. To this day, probably our most profound, one of our most profound and best, because it changed everything. And I remember distinctly, we did a couple of exercises that was taking me a while to get there. And you challenged me, you got me to challenge myself to go all in a way I had never thought about things before. Specifically, I think some of the conversation was around, Leanne, you are a high performer. You are someone who makes plans, creates things, and does what you say you're going to do. You hired a career coach to help grow in your career and unlock potential in different ways. You know, when you want to have an amazing wedding, you hired the best wedding planner you could find in the Cotswolds. When you wanted to prepare for marriage and were watching your friends go do pre-canna classes and you weren't getting married in a Catholic church, you hired a marriage coach because it sounded like an appropriate way to start the journey to be most optimized for. And I hadn't done that for myself when it came to running. One of the things that I was spending probably the most time on in my personal life. And that question, that push of why would you not outsource? Why would you not bring in a coach to help take you to the next level in this instance?
Yes, because at this point in the story, you had gotten this far all on your own resources, your own thinking, your own planning, your own strategizing. And while that had served you really, really well, in that one particular session that you're talking about, it was very clear that in order to actually do Boston, qualify for Boston, run Boston, break through Heartbreak Hill that they talk about in Boston, you were going to need somebody who was an expert in Boston. And at that moment in time, that was beyond you. And so if this was really a dream, really a goal worth fighting for, it was going to have to require somebody beyond you. And something really shifted in you.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did. I mean, I decided to see what would happen if I pushed my training to a completely new level. I mean, it's not just my training though. I think this kind of mantra of what would happen if I were to be all in? What would happen if I pushed to the absolute limit was not a place I was operating from before. It meant going all in, yes, on race day, but it meant going all in on the training plan. It meant going all in on the ins and outs of the depths of winter. I started that training plan. I think it was in October or November, almost right away after we kind of made that decision together and found the right coach, the right professional to help get me there. But it was through the depths of winter. And I live in New York City. It's cold. It's pretty brutal. And on top,
windy,
it's
running
windy
along that river.
Yeah. And then that also means the peak of training was going to happen right in the middle of the holidays. Truly, across Christmas and New Year's. So what would it mean to be all in and waking up on the day after Christmas to go knock out a 22-mile run when it was the absolute last thing I wanted to do?
And there's a funny story about the coach that you ended up hiring, a very kind of small world, funny side story.
Yes. So the coach I ended up going with was professional athlete, has a large presence in the running world herself. But my husband actually was like, tell me how the conversation went with Lori. Tell me everything. Obviously broke it down for him. And he, without me knowing, he reached out within his personal network to this person who he had grown up a few towns away from, but they didn't know each other directly, and just said, hey, this is what happened with Boston. I don't know if you do anything like this, but would you be open to at least having a coaching discussion or a conversation with my wife? And she said, let's do it. So yeah, it was such an amazing journey and inspiration.
And why I love that is, one, you shared with your husband, and two, that coach was literally 1 degree away from you.
Yes.
I mean, was literally right in your network, and all it required was the willingness to just raise your hand. So, my beloved mentor, Anne, always talks about the universal laws. And she says, what you are seeking is seeking you.
I love that.
And so there it was. What you were seeking, you didn't even know you were seeking till we had that conversation, was right there waiting to be sought. And really powerful part of the story.
Yeah. No, you're so right. You're so right.
Yeah. And so she had the perspective to say, hey, you've done great to this point, but we're going to change some things. We're going to step it up. We're going to change some of your food, the way you eat on training days. We're going to change some things. And that new perspective resulted in.
Yeah. So it was the new perspective. It was I think the accountability as well.
Yes.
That's a really important thing. Like, I believe in accountability, but I also hold myself to a high standard. And when I finally hired a coach, it wasn't about just outsourcing like some of the spreadsheets and the tweaking and perspective, but it really was a psychological pivot. It freed up the mental energy I used either writing my own plans, second guessing my own plans, or allowing myself off the hook, quite frankly, on some mornings where it's like, I'll do, maybe today is a yoga day and it's not a 10-mile day before work, but I had to report back to her where I was every day, where I was landing, what my paces were in particular, so we could continue to optimize. But yes, fast forward in February, I went down to Wilmington, North Carolina, this kind of small marathon that had been suggested to me because it was early in the season, same time zone as New York, so not requiring a ton of travel. It's not another big global guy. And if I weren't to hit my goals there, I would still be highly trained and in a place to go find another marathon and get it done that year. So I went down to Wilmington. It was, like I said, it was super tiny. It was just my husband, my dog, and I. My parents actually flew in and surprised me, but it was kind of meant to be this sneaky little thing I was going to go test myself with. And I went all in. And every mile, I remember looking down at my watch being like, I don't know if I can hold this, but I'm going to sure as hell try. And there was a time, I think it was at about mile 22, that I was like, oh my goodness, maybe I'm going too all in. Maybe my whole, if I,
Holy smokes.
yeah, and actually won't, I don't know what's going to happen next. But I held on and ended up finishing at 11 minutes under the qualifying standard. And
Unbelievable. I mean,
it was
mind-blowing, unbelievable. And just if you can see Leanne on the YouTube, I mean, that smile just says it all. Like, just look at that smile. Like, esteemable acts build esteem. I'm constantly saying that. And that was a moment when you did that for yourself. 11 minutes under your best time, but you had really done the work.
Yep.
Okay. So then you have that race time.
Got that race time. Got the race time. I mean, I knew what to do with it, submitted it to BAA as an accepted qualifying time, and was like, this is it. And then I found out a few months later that I was pregnant. And,
and now we have a miracle baby boy.
and we do. And he's the best. He just turned 1 year old a couple of weeks ago. So that's part of the story, though. It's very much a part of the story because there's no buts around how overjoyed we were to find out that I was expecting. But I, of course, had in the back of my mind, let me do the math on this due date. It was due date of April 27th. The Boston Marathon scheduled for, I think, April 22nd.
Yeah. The math did not math.
And listen, I actually did run a marathon 16 weeks pregnant. You can run marathons pregnant. Runners can run, right? We know that. We've seen some really inspiring stuff, but I knew I couldn't run it quite that pregnant. Fortunately, the Boston Marathon allows one type of deferral, which is pregnancy and postpartum. Thankfully, a little side note, I was also registered to run Tokyo about 6 weeks prior to that Boston Marathon. And at the time, Tokyo did not recognize pregnancy and postpartum as an accepted deferral. That's changed. I'd like to say I had maybe a hand in some of that, but I can imagine I wrote a bunch of letters. How can this be true? I'm sure many mothers and women did the same, and that policy has changed. So fast forward to this year, I'm very proud to say that not only did I knock out the Tokyo Marathon in March, but I finally crossed the finish line in Boston this April.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just such a great story. It warms my heart. You're in Boston. You have a great race. You get your medal with all 6 races, majors that you've run. And you get the moment that you waited for that felt like might not happen. When there's a setback, you wonder, is this going to come true? And then a delay, a happy delay, but still a delay. And so the patience and the perseverance and the real intensity and to keep going. Tell me what this lesson has really taught you from a leadership perspective.
Great question. I think, there's a huge difference between being disciplined enough to hit target. And again, I'm a sales gal. Hitting target, the numbers don't lie. And that's what I've loved in business and in racing. And there is a huge difference between having the systems, the discipline, the hygiene to simply hit target and being brave enough to find your limit. And when I, now coach my team, like I said, that was a mantra that I tried to really bring through to them around what does it mean? What does it mean to really be all in? We know numerically, quarter over quarter, year over year what it takes. We know the appropriate levers to pull when we're behind, to pull things forward, to drive incremental outcomes, to increase conversion rates, all of those types of things. But when you think of your career and when you think of how you show up every single day, what does it mean to be all in? So I apply that to myself in my career and how I'm thinking of my long-term strategy. And I would say even more specifically is you've had folks on your podcast. You and I've talked about this a bunch, but just doing great work often isn't enough to get to the next level. And that's a whole separate conversation, but it's very much related, right? That having the discipline, just doing great work, being the best from a numbers perspective, or in that kind of upper echelon, is that really being all in for you?
Mm. Yeah.
So I would say that's been a huge lesson.
Yeah. Yes. And, I think I know you so well. I know for you, that answer is that's not all in. And so for you, there are other things that give you a much more robust life. One of those is the philanthropy work that you do.
Yeah.
And that has a bit of a story. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I would love to. So all of my marathons, in fact, outside of Boston and my qualifying race have all been on behalf of my little sisters. And two of my little sisters, Lauren and Logan, have cystic fibrosis. They were both diagnosed at birth. So cystic fibrosis, for those who aren't familiar, is a chronic disease. There's currently, it impacts the pancreas, the lung functions, and the body's ability to break down fat, and it creates an overly sticky kind of mucus within the body, without getting too into the weeds. But today there's no cure. And when Lauren was born, we're 4 years apart. When Lauren was born, the average life expectancy was around 18 years old. Today, thankfully, due to science and a ton of grassroots fundraising, the average life expectancy of someone born with CF today, not someone who has CF, but someone born with CF today, I believe is in the 60 to 65 range. So it's amazing.
Miraculous.
It's miraculous. It really, there's tons of data and articles published around CF being the modern day medical miracle.
Yeah.
And I believe that, but there's still no cure. So every marathon, every mile, every, tens and thousands of dollars of fundraising pushes that have gone into this journey have really been, with them and behind me. And when people always ask, you're training on the day after Thanksgiving or the day before Thanksgiving, and it's a gross snowstorm or it's freezing rain, like why? Or why are you still doing marathons? And for me, that answer has always been really easy, and there's still no cure. And this is my way of driving awareness, as well as making hopefully a big difference in their lives.
Yes. Yes. And you certainly do. You sit on the board of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, and you fundraise and you create advocacy and awareness. And that's how I met you, was at a cystic fibrosis fundraiser. My dear friends were being honored, and there you were. And it's been love at first sight ever since.
Pretty much. Yeah. I think we were standing in this little after party after the big gala. We had connected there for briefly, serendipitously, I think.
Yes.
And we're standing in this little kind of after party bar that your friends were hosting, and really continued to hit it off to the point that I was like, I don't know, I haven't done this before, but can I have your number?
Yes. Yes. And I was so flattered. Yeah, it was great. Yes. Yes. And we've been working together pretty much ever since.
Yes.
In some capacity. So, and what a journey it has been. And to see you grow and become a mother and a qualifier and a 6 marathon around the world, just medal girl. It's just been such a wonderful journey for me. I think there's so much to your story about, the woman who's listening, who's doing it all herself, who's trying to figure it out. She is much like you. She is disciplined. She's pretty intense, and she's getting to a certain level. Any final words for her about how to break through a ceiling?
Yeah. One, I used to have the mindset that there's enough room at the top, and it was okay to just kind of put your head down and get it done, and the rest is going to take care of itself because good work pays off and there's enough room at the top. And that has completely shifted, and that good work does matter a lot. And who you surround yourself and how you are intentional with your coaching that you bring in and your board of directors. I know we all hear that concept a ton. And who's on your bus matters a lot. It matters just as much as doing excellent work. Doing great work is the standard, right? That is the bar. That's the baseline. It's the minimum expectation.
That's why you get a paycheck.
That's why you get a paycheck. Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's that you cannot go at it alone, and you have to bring in the right people to help get you and unlock your true highest performance, whether that is in a professional setting or in a personal setting. I think of, I mentioned my husband before, but he's solo parented pretty much every Saturday of this entire year so that I could go knock out a 4-hour training run. And it takes, and I think like that has not been on accident either.
Right. Great support. What shifted in you that went from, or was there a shift in you that went from, it's really the responsibility of my company to invest in my coaching, my development, to I actually need to do this for myself? How did that shift happen for you? Because I know that you receive both. Your company helps, but you also take your own money and invest in your own growth. How did that shift happen?
Listen, I am very fortunate to have an employer that has amazing benefits. And I'm so grateful for them. And I would say it's important to know what those benefits are and explore them because they are available to you. And I did that. I explored a bunch. I met with other coaches, internal folks, but I do think having someone outside of your immediate network that is completely unbiased to your day-to-day work, to maybe the brand that you have as well is critical. And the shift specifically was kind of that moment of careers are long, and I may or may not be here forever, but I'm ready to think differently. And I'm ready to kind of take my own life to the next level. So I don't know. I don't know. That's not a super eloquent answer, but it's just the truth. There was kind of the switch that flipped around. It's time to do things a little bit differently. And anyone who has kind of that scratch or itch in the back of your mind of there's another level to me. There's something else here that I know I am not quite achieving. It's important to go outside of your immediate resources.
Yes. Well, my friend, that has certainly paid off for you. As you were leaving for maternity leave, you were promoted. Work has been wonderful for you. And all these marathons, and especially Boston, which was such sweet victory. And it was so nice to cheer you on. So what a pleasure today. Thank you for joining me.
Laura, thank you so much, not just for welcoming me today, but for everything over the last couple of years. You have truly been one of the most important people in my life, and your perspective is there's no price point.
Thank you. Thank you. So much joy, so much love. All right, Leanne, thank you for joining us. I'm Lori Pine, the Joy CEO, and I will see you back next week.